Good evening and thank you for being here. I'm Kevin Green, I'm president of the Midtown Alliance. I'm going to go ahead and crank things up as people start to find their seats here. First of all, let me thank the Georgian Terrace for hosting this evening. What a beautiful property this is, and an absolute jewel for Midtown. We have got a lot of information to share this evening. The topic is transportation. It is a multi-dimensional topic. It's something that we've been working a lot on. I think we've got some guests I'd like to welcome as well. I saw Representative Pat Gardner here walking in earlier. There she is. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership. I know we have relay rides, the recently announced and recently implemented City of Atlanta bike share. So thank you for being here. I see a lot of blue bikes on bike racks throughout Midtown, so congratulations. We look forward to your growth. My role is to provide some context, and then I'm going to invite our experts up to really walk through the work that we've been doing on transportation. This has been a process that we started last fall. We've done a lot of studying, a lot of work. We have an steering committee that's been hard at work. Their final meeting is tomorrow, so consider this evening sort of a sneak peek at the final steering committee meeting. I think it's also important to note that this work is coming at a really pivotal time for our city. When we undertook this work in the fall of last year, we never would have dreamed that we'd be looking at a City of Atlanta referendum for a half-penny sales tax, or a T-SPLOST as we hear. We're seeing project lists generated now that are assuming a $375 million spend over 5 years for a half penny. And then as well as that, historic MARTA referendum, a half a penny over 40 plus years. It'll generate about $2.5 billion of funding, of local funding for MARTA transit expansion. So really historic and pivotal time for our city. At this point, it's a matter of defining the right projects, getting the referendum to pass with a high degree of confidence on the part of city voters that the city is going to be able to implement this volume of projects. Last week, as you may have heard, the Georgia Department of Transportation announced almost $100 million of support for additional City of Atlanta transportation projects. As you know, the Renew Atlanta bond passed recently. That's about $200 million worth of projects. So the volume of things that are happening is pretty astounding. And the good news is, I really view ourselves as starting this transportation planning process at a good time. It allowed us to answer a lot of questions that we've had for a long time and really go forward with a list of projects that we feel really good about. It allowed us to involve a lot of you community members. And we're going to talk a lot about what you said and then what we've done as a result. Probably goes without saying that this is a topic with a lot of different dimensions. We tend to think about transportation in terms of cars and bikes and buses and trucks and transit and streetcars, or as specific projects. Also involves equipment that has taken an increasingly important role in terms of how we use our system. By that I mean traffic signals. We've been hard at work in that for a long time. It involves an interlocking set of rules and regulations and laws that govern how we use our public spaces. And it involves priorities, really how we allocate the resources that we have between a multitude of different needs. So a lot of our discussion this evening, by way of context, is going to focus on the physical space that we use, and really more directly, how we make the most optimal use of what's between the curbs here. So people can get around on foot, on bicycle, in vehicles, on transit in a safe and efficient way. And we're talking about things like on-street parking, like crosswalks, like loading zones, like bike lanes, like transit and bus stops. And I guess I would emphasize that when we talk about a transportation plan, we're not talking about a traffic plan. Our streets are the biggest public space that we have, and they really need to be thought about as public space because they have a lot more work to do than just move cars. They support retail, they support business, they are what creates a vibrant and welcoming environment for our residents and our workers and our visitors. They need to provide a safe place for people to get around, as I've noted, and there's a lot of room for improvement. That's what we're going to talk about. Also want to talk about users of this transportation system, because they all have different unique needs. We got big feet, we got little feet, we got people of different abilities, we have people of different ages, we have a few unlicensed drivers that we get it from time to time. So we have a lot of different people with different needs, and increasingly, as I mentioned, the equipment is becoming a pretty powerful tool for us in terms of how we optimize this. As I noted, we've been hard at work through our Midtown Traffic Optimization Program for several years, and these signals do more than just push cars through intersections. And so we've done a lot of work in terms of improving safety for pedestrians, greenways for bicycles, and other things that have been really an eye-opening and impressive for us. We have tools that are becoming really more and more prevalent, including cell phones that are talking about, real-time information and hailing rides. We've got a multitude of regulations, as I noted. We seem to see a lot of sidewalk closures for reasons that we don't fully understand. We see street closures. We're working on left turn lanes to improve traffic flow. We've got regulations about where vehicles can stop. And we got speed limits that by and large are not enforced. As I noted, we've got a lot of technology that's going to continue to grow. And all this comes down to tens of thousands of people making tens of thousands of different travel choices each and every day. And it really comes down to, where do I need to go? How can I get there? Is it safe? Is it convenient? How much is it going to cost? What time do I need to leave? Do I have the information I need to make those decisions? And everything that influences those choices is a lot of what we'll be talking about today. So it's everything I've talked about, but in the bottom line is, how do we knit all this together and more to create an exceptional urban experience? Because these things have all got to work together. We know there's some givens. This is Midtown today, this is Midtown tomorrow. We're going to continue to grow. We have more new construction coming out of the ground right now than ever in Midtown's history. There are 19 projects under construction. It's really amazing what's happening in about a 1 square mile area. This also means, an increase. We have 65,000 people coming to work here every day. As we continue to grow, there are 750 new jobs announced over the last 2 weeks coming to Midtown, not counting NCR, not counting WorldPay, not counting a lot of other recent announcements. We know we need to do a different job. Not everybody's going to be able to drive. We've got our Midtown Transportation team back there, Sarah and Thomas. They're going to be available to answer questions. They work with employers on commute option programs. How can your employees find a different way to get to work besides driving? And in a transit-rich environment like Midtown, there are a lot of high-quality choices. It just requires information and effort. Part of what Paul's going to talk about in a minute is something called transportation demand management. It's how do you eliminate trips from ever starting, particularly single-occupant vehicle trips. Other givens are the fact that we have a really strong network to work off of. This is the street grid of Midtown, and you're going to be seeing similar maps to this evening, so let's just take a minute and orient. South is to the left, north is to the right, and the white line that goes across the page is the connector, if that helps. This is a shape you're also going to be seeing tonight. That's the Midtown Improvement District. That's 1.2 square miles that makes up the boundaries of the Midtown Improvement District. It really is largely to the east of the connector, except it picks up the Turner Broadcasting campus to the west. This is an area where we focused a lot of our work, and where you'll see a lot of the maps focusing, but we also looked at the connective tissue in, out, and around this area. So we didn't focus exclusively on this area. This is our street grid. This is a very powerful tool that allows us to have a lot of more flexibility in terms of how we utilize the space between the curbs. This is about 24 linear miles of streets, or about 65 linear miles of lanes. So we're going to be talking about how we repurpose a small percentage of those lanes to serve some broader purposes. We know that transit will be an increasingly valuable asset. These are the transit stations in the red circles, and these are the red squares, and the circles are what constitutes a 6-minute walk to a rail transit system. We know that more and more employers and residents are making location decisions based upon accessibility to high-capacity transit, and rail transit in Midtown is very well served. We also know that the bus system is going to take on an increasingly important role for us in terms of rubber-tired transportation that can be deployed. We've got a good network. We suffer on east-west connectivity, frankly, and we suffer on frequency. And we're going to talk about that and ways that we can smooth out some of these for really cost-effective transit, an increase in transit effectiveness. We also know that things outside of the immediate district impact traffic within Midtown. This is traffic along the connector in 7585. We know that when the connector is stacked, every vehicle trying to access the connector on surface streets in Midtown is also going to be stacked. Interestingly, we also know that on every weekday, 1 in 3 cars traveling the local street network in Midtown are not starting in Midtown or stopping in Midtown. They're traveling through Midtown. Not a big surprise, but interesting to know that it's really 1 in 3 vehicles that's doing that. So every time you see a car in Midtown, don't think they started or stopped here. We also know that things change, that we have evolving priorities, and the transportation network that we had yesterday is not exactly the same as we have today, and is not exactly the same as we have tomorrow. So this is what we really kind of started out with in Midtown. This is 3rd Street on Spring Street looking north. Judging from the vehicles, it looks like it's in the late 40s or so. That's when Spring Street was a 2-way street, 1 lane each direction, vehicles parked on both sides. And this is the way it was until really the 80s. At the time the connector began widening, this is a time when Midtown was pretty disinvested. And the goal for Midtown transportation became moving vehicles rapidly through Midtown. And so the street network went to this, which is a 1-way street network. No more on-street parking in this particular place. This is the street network that we have today. But the goals have changed. I mean, if you look immediately to the north up there, you've got Tech Square, some of the heaviest pedestrian traffic that we have in Midtown, some of the heaviest bicycle traffic that we have in Midtown. So our goals are no longer moving people as quickly through Midtown as we can, but it's really to create a very high-quality experience for people to access Midtown and to have a high-quality and safe experience when they're here, and to have abundant choices for how to get around other than getting in a car. We also know that these wide 1-way streets create high speeds, they create traffic jockeying, and they create pretty treacherous conditions for people to try and get across and for cyclists to try and navigate. So our goals are to create a vibrant urban experience, and we know that we have some challenges to get there, and we're going to talk about those challenges. As walkable as Midtown is known, we've got challenges in terms of the walkability of Midtown. And as bikeable as Midtown is known, I don't think anybody's satisfied with the bicycle network that we have in Midtown. It's disconnected and it's high stress. We also know that Midtown has a disproportionate amount of traffic accidents compared to other central business districts of our size and scale. So we also know that as we surveyed you, and 1,000 of you responded to our online survey, the #1 issue was safety, and the #1 issue within safety was pedestrian safety. And we're listening. We're out on the streets every day. We're pedestrians, we're cyclists, we're on transit, we're in cars, and we're starting to take pictures. And let me just share just one little aspect of what we're doing just to kind of drive some of this home, just in the issue of crosswalks. This is 13th Street and Peachtree. Looks like we need to install some starting blocks for this guy as he's ready to embark upon the 20-yard dash across Peachtree. This is a non-signalized intersection, of course. And there's a better view. Venturing one block north, this is 14th and Peachtree, and they're not only blocking the box, but it's pretty treacherous if you're a pedestrian. Same intersection, a few minutes later, this pedestrian has a walk signal, which you can barely see in the picture, and you can see that he is not able to get across the street. A few minutes later, he's now in negotiations. He's now in negotiations with the guy in the Lexus to achieve the east side of Peachtree Street. And I can attest to you that he did make it, but you'll also note he's wearing running shoes. Same intersection, you'll note that these are vehicles entering on a red light. Same intersection, this is a mother and a child. Yes, no, this is not a mother that's relaxed, and the reason why is this vehicle that's entered the intersection that's heading her way on a red light. You know, I'm not picking on 14th and Peachtree, but that's one example of some of the conditions that we have that we want to address. This is 10th and Williams Street, and the conditions that cyclists are navigating. So we know we've got some work to do, and this is our opportunity to really talk frankly about the challenges that we've got, take what's good about Midtown, make more of it, take what's bad about Midtown and address it with a goal of creating an exceptional place, because really if any place can pull it off, I would argue that Midtown can. I'm pleased that we've got a consulting team that shares our view, that we really have an opportunity to create an exceptional place with transportation as our tool. Vehicle speeds, another issue we're going to talk about. This is Williams and 10th Street. If you back up, not only is this person traveling fast, but he's entering the intersection on a red light. I'm gonna stop there, but I think you get the picture. Let me just say a couple of words about Midtown Alliance before we turn it over to Paul. Midtown Alliance is a nonprofit. We're not a regulatory agency. We're not an agency of the city. We're a nonprofit. We do planning, we do programming, we gather facts, we gather experts, we try and articulate a vision, we reach out to the public and gain consensus on that vision, we assemble leadership around that vision, we approach those that do control the streets and sidewalks. The City of Atlanta is largely who we're talking about here, but also note that we're dealing with some state roads this evening as well. The Georgia Department of Transportation controls sections of Spring Street, West Peachtree, Peachtree Street towards the north end of our district, 14th Street, and North Avenue. So we've got public partners that we work with very effectively, I think. We articulate a vision. We decide which projects we want to support financially, and in partnership with the Midtown Improvement District, those are the projects that we bring forward. We've done a whole lot of work on transportation over the last 15 years in Midtown, largely focused on walkability and safety. A lot of two-way conversions as well. We have $10 million of funding this year targeted towards what I would consider transportation improvements, bridge improvements, pedestrian improvements, traffic improvements. So we're no stranger to the issue, but again, we know that there's a lot more that can get done.